Hello guys, Mark Shen here. In this video, I'm gonna share with you the 10 things that you probably want to consider when buying an electric guitar. Whether you're on the market buying your first electric guitar or your 10th, my goal is to help you be informed with the things that you need to look out for. And hopefully with all the information that you have in this video, it's gonna help you make a really great decision and that you'll find the instrument of your dreams for the budget that you have. So I'm gonna start with number one. Now the first most important thing I would say is that you probably want to set your budget before getting out there and trying to shop for a guitar. There are tons of guitars out there that range from up to like $30,000, the extreme ones, obviously, down to like $100, right? So the best thing you can do to help you narrow down your search is to set your budget. I would say, if you're a first timer, if you're a beginner and this is your first guitar, I would say anywhere from 500 to 1,000 would be a great budget. If you don't have that, then 500 would be a great budget. Okay, so set your budget, and from there, when you go online and you're shopping, punch in your budget in the search bar, and that will help to narrow down what options you will have, and this is gonna make it a lot easier for you to find your instrument. And I would also like to mention that when you buy a new instrument, you're gonna get less for your money, obviously, because you're paying full price, right? So used guitars usually have a level of depreciation. So I personally love buying used guitars because what's happening is I'm buying a better guitar for less money sometimes. So that's something for you to consider. Set your budget, and from there, decide whether you want to get a new or used instrument, and then begin your search. So yeah, there it is, number one. For number two, I would say the most important thing is aesthetic. Buy a guitar that you absolutely love looking at. That when you look at it every day, it just inspires you to want to play it. One of the things for me, when I bought my first electric guitar, was obviously my inspiration. Back then, I listened, my music genres like today that I listen to are very different, but back then I listened to a lot of Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith, and the Les Paul was a really big thing back then. I still like the Les Paul. It's just not, I just don't play it all the time nowadays. It's not my only guitar now. But back then was the Les Paul. So Slash used it, all the great guitar players used it. Gary Moore used it, one of my favorite guitar players. So my first electric guitar was, guess what? It was a Les Paul style electric guitar. I couldn't afford a real Les Paul, but I bought a Japanese-made Les Paul style guitar, which was the Tokai LS90Q. Amazing guitar, in many ways probably even better manufactured than an actual Gibson, because they put so much attention to detail. The Japanese are just crazy when it comes to workmanship. So yes, so make sure you buy a guitar that you absolutely love to look at, and consider who inspires you, and follow your heart. Don't buy a guitar that just totally does not have the color that you like, or the finish, or if you like flame tops, or if you like plain just solid colored guitars, whatever it is, make sure you make your mind up as to what kind of aesthetic it is you're looking for, the style, the shape. So if you're more of a metal dude, you probably don't want to get a guitar that looks like it's for blues or jazz, right? So yeah, decide what your style is, and then from there, I think you will get the guitar that you absolutely are going to fall in love with. The third most important thing I would say would be your fretboard. For me, the fretboard of the guitar really defines the guitar for me. When I'm looking for a guitar, the deal breaker is usually the fretboard for me. The first thing I'll look at, if the fretboard doesn't have a nice even finish, okay, I'm talking about, like, I usually like dark fretboards. So for me, ebony fretboards are my number one, and obviously dark rosewood fretboards are my second choice. I'm not a huge fan of light fretboards like maple, so you have to decide for yourself. Okay, what kind of fretboard do you want on your guitar? Is it going to be a light or a dark finish? Whatever the case is, my advice is get a fretboard with as even color as possible. This makes playing less distracting, because when you buy a guitar, there's some guitars that just have very poor quality of woods. And I say this, and I'm just telling you the truth, because there are manufacturers out there that want to make you believe that their fretboard was designed in a certain way on purpose with just really horrible grain. I'm talking about like ebony fretboards that claim to be ebony, and they have all kinds of weird patterns and it's just uneven colors, and they claim it's awesome because it's cool, right? But I don't agree with that. Okay, don't buy into that. The best woods are extremely expensive to buy because they are evenly dark. Okay, like the most expensive woods, for example, or fretboard woods is ebony, like perfectly pitch black ebony. It's very expensive to buy. They're very rare as well. And so that's the kind of stuff that I look out for, dark, even, okay, quality fretboards. Okay, there are cheaper materials out there that they use as to substitute to make it look like ebony. They would dye these fretboards black and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan of that, but once again, something for you to consider. Okay, but my advice is get the fretboard that works for you color-wise. Make sure it's even colored, and yeah. So fretboard, that's the next most important thing. Number 4, I would say the neck is probably the next thing you want to look at. So you have the fretboard, right, where your fingers are going to be playing, and obviously where you're going to be staring at most of the time. And the next most important thing is the neck. If you are someone with really big hands, you don't want to buy a guitar with a very thin neck. I don't recommend it. For me personally, I'm just trying to obviously help you with your decision making. But for me, I have medium-sized hands, like medium-large, I would say, medium-large. And so I like necks that are just a little bit bigger side, a little bit chunkier side, not so big that I cannot even reach the higher frets. My 57 Les Paul, for example, has an extremely huge neck. Okay, 57s have that chunky neck, and I do struggle reaching the higher frets. It's not fun. Obviously, when you cannot really reach because your hands are not quite big enough. Something that you probably want to consider is that if you have big hands, or small hands, you probably want to find a guitar neck that's comfortable for you to play. And number 5, I would say the scale length of the guitar is something that's very important for you to consider. Now, my first guitar was a Les Paul style guitar, was a Tokai LS90Q, and the scale length was 24.75. Okay, that's kind of Gibson's standard, and it's very easy to play because the shorter the scale length, and by that I mean the distance between the nut and the bridge. Okay, so you have your strings, and the strings have 2 points. One of them is your nut and your bridge, and that length is your scale length. Now, the shorter the scale length, the easier it is to play the guitar. Okay, it's easy to bend, it's easier to do vibratos, and so I got along really well for my first guitar. Obviously, I just felt like I had the freedom to express myself, and obviously when you start going into scale length that are 25.5, like Fender Stratocasters, they become increasingly more difficult to play. So the other option is to drop your string gauge to a 9-gauge string, which I'm not a huge fan of. I tried that and I didn't like it. For me, playing 10s is still my thing. It just helps me feel the instrument a lot better. 9 just feels too thin and too tingy when I'm playing. It just feels too weird. And so scale length is really important. The longer the scale length, the more difficult it is for you to play the guitar. I'm talking about 10-gauge strings here. Okay, if you're the person that don't mind playing 9-gauge strings, then in that case, then I guess scale length doesn't matter. But for me, I play 10-gauge strings, and that's kind of like the standard. And so 25.5 inch is definitely more challenging for me to play. And so it depends on your style as well, So definitely something to consider. Okay, do you want a PRS style guitar, 25-inch scale length, Gibson, which is the shortest, and then you have Stratocaster, which is 25.5, which is the longest, the most difficult to play. And then you have obviously the Jaguar, which is like, I think 23.5 or something like that. So it's, scale length, definitely do consider it when buying a new guitar. Number 6, I would say your pickups would be the next most important thing. Now, your sound, right, is you can have the most beautiful guitar, but if it doesn't sound good, it doesn't have the sound that you're looking for, it's going to be an issue. Now, the cool thing about pickups is that usually you can change it to a certain extent, right? So if, let's say you have humbucker style guitar, you can change it out, and that's fine. Okay, the only issue is that it's going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you a lot of time swapping those pickups out, which is stuff that I do all the time. It really is a lot of money, and there's a lot of time trying pickups and shipping it back if you don't like it, or selling it off. And so finding pickups that you like would be helpful if you can get it straight off the bat, right out of the case, right? For me, when I buy a guitar, if it's got a certain kind of pickup that I like, it really helps. That way I know I don't have to do too much work to change stuff out or spend more money to change out the pickups. Things to consider is that humbuckers have a bigger sound. They're bigger, fatter tone, okay? Single coils have a really awesome sounding mid-range, more sparkly and more bright sounding, okay? And then you have the P90s, which is kind of like a fatter version, a bigger version of a single coil. And of course you have all your active, pickups that metal players use. So do decide what kind of pickups would work for you. Do look around YouTube and listen to different kinds of pickups. Obviously, honestly, based on my experience, like watching YouTube videos on pickups is probably one of the worst things that you can do, because everyone uses a different amp, right? Everyone uses different pedals, and you're just not going to be able to hear what a pickup sounds like until you have it in your hands, okay? But pickups is something that you do want to consider when you're buying a new guitar. The next most important thing that you need to consider is your bridge and your tremolo bar. Do you want a bridge with a tremolo bar, or do you just want a plain bridge? For me, I started out with just a plain bridge, a Gibson style bridge, and it wasn't an issue for me back then because it was my first guitar, so I didn't know what having a tremolo bar would be like. And then as I started buying more guitars, I started to realize that my playing style does revolve quite heavily on the trem bar. I do a lot of vibrato stuff when I'm playing chords. And so right now I'm at a stage in my life where most guitars that I buy will need a trem bar. So you need to decide for yourself if a tremolo bar is something that you want or not. Does that matter to you? And also what kind of tremolo bar, because if you are into the big heavy metal kind of dive bombing kind of music kind of thing, then you want something like a Floyd Rose, right? Which is basically guitar screws that are screwing the string down and holding those strings. So you can do crazy things like throw your guitar in the air while you're flinging your tremolo bar around. So yeah, it's one of the things you definitely want to look into. Certain bridges like the Fender Classic vintage style bridges are really not my thing, because they hurt my hands when I'm resting my palm on the bridge. So I like more of like the Fender Elite Stratocaster style bridges, because they're just more comfortable to put my hands on. So definitely one of the key things is making sure that you get the guitar with the right bridge and a tremolo bar if that's what you're looking for. The next most important thing I would say are your tuners. Back then, tuners weren't such a big thing, but as I got to experience different guitars, for example, like this Fender Stratocaster here, I tried putting 9 strings on this guitar and I literally could not do it. Okay, I would try to tighten, I would tune the strings up to pitch and it literally would bounce out of the post. It was that bad. And so, I definitely prefer guitars with locking tuners. The higher end guitars usually come with locking tuners. So I do recommend it. Basically, it is tuners that have a screw that lock down onto the string and prevent it from slipping. Okay, it makes tuning a lot more stable, and it makes restringing your guitar a lot easier. So definitely do consider if you want tuners with locking or without locking capabilities, and also the kind of quality of tuners that you'll be getting with your guitar. Because trust me, there are really bad tuners out there, and tuning stability can be a major issue for you. The next most important thing I would say would be the weight of the guitar. Now, Les Pauls have a tendency of being extremely heavy depending on which model it is that you buy, but certain guitars can go up to like 10, 11, 12 pounds. Now, if you're going to be playing on the stage for hours on end, that's going to definitely take a toll on your body and your shoulders. It's definitely going to hurt by the end of your gig. And so if you're a particularly big guy and you're okay with, and you're strong and you can handle the weight, that's great. I personally prefer heavy guitars. They just feel more solid in my hands. But, some people, prefer lighter guitars like 7.5 pounds, 8.5 pounds. Some people feel like that's kind of like the ideal weight. So make sure you decide for yourself, what kind of weight it is that you want your guitar to be. And when you're shopping around, if you're shopping around used or even new gear, you can go ahead and contact the sellers and say, hey, can you tell me, how heavy this guitar is? And that will help you kind of narrow down your search, and especially if you're against heavy guitars. I think that will really help you. Now, last but not least, number 10 is playability. Okay. Now, if you got everything together, everything that I talked about, you found that perfect guitar and it had all the elements that you're looking for, but you take it out of the case and you play it and it's absolutely horrible, it just plays terrible, it's definitely a deal breaker, right? So, well, my first tip is obviously do get your electric guitar professionally set up, okay? And I need to mention this because not all guitars are set up the same. There are very high-level professional guitar setups. Okay, the stuff that I do is definitely very high level. By high level, I mean like it comes to the point where they actually level the frets. Some of them put it in a plaque machine. For me, I level the strings while the guitar is in tune, so that it's perfectly level. And I also do a fall away to make sure the strings are as low as possible without buzzing. So there are high-level guitar setups and really like garbage guitar setups that are done by people that have too much work, and they have to set up 100 guitars a day because the shop's selling so many guitars and they're just gonna whatever and they're just next, right? So guitar setup is really important, but if after you set up your guitar and it still plays badly, which means it just doesn't feel good, it doesn't vibrate the way you want it, the strings, it has very poor sustain. The frets just don't feel good. It's sharp, it's hurting your hands or whatever it is. If the playability of a guitar is no good, then it's a major issue. So if you don't have the luxury of trying the guitar in person, obviously that's another challenge, right? You're buying online, you only get it when it's shipped to your house. And what I like to do is go to the store and try out different guitars, and if I can find a guitar that I'm looking for, awesome. Get a feel for what the neck feels like, right? Because that's what you'll be holding. And then go online and try to find a cheaper deal, right? Many ways to get about it. But if you can get your hands on a guitar and actually try it out in person, that is obviously the best thing. Okay, if not, then well, hopefully buy from a seller that will give you the option of being able to return the guitar if you're not happy with it. Okay, so playability is really, really key. Find a guitar that hopefully after it's professionally set up plays like butter, and you're gonna love that instrument for many years to come. So there it is, the 10 most important things that you probably want to consider before buying your electric guitar, and I really hope that this is going to help you. Do download my free electric guitar buying guide. Okay, I put all this information into a guide so that you don't have to watch this video all over again. Just download the PDF guide using the link below, and I'm going to give you a list of things you need to look out for. And I'm also going to put like guitars that I recommend at a certain budget, let's say like 500 or 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000. I'm also going to put pickups that I would recommend. I've tried and I've tested a lot of pickups in my life, and I'm just gonna straight up tell you which I think is the best. And this is obviously very, very valuable information because it costs hundreds and thousands of dollars for me to get out there and buy and try. And obviously there's no right pickup for everyone. Everyone likes different sounds, but I'm gonna give you my recommendation for more of a generalized and that will fit most people. Okay, so do check out the guide below and download it. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope it will help you. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you again in the next video.